from being a mastercraft dealer to starting a company called American Healthcare Lending. And then you started another company called CMS Dose. And now you're at Connect. And every stage you've been successful. And here's the best part for all of our listeners, if I remember correctly, none of them was to do with any professional venture capital outside funding. Is that correct?
That's correct. The one thing you said that's not correct is that all of them have been successful. I think those are the successful ones that you're reading about. There's a bunch more that are not so successful, right? That's what an entrepreneur does, is fail a few times first.
Hey everyone, welcome. We've got this great show. We're so excited to have you. And we have our dear friend Shaun Sorensen here. And we're going to talk to you about his background in just a second, but we're really happy to have him here. Shaun, welcome, dude. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Look at that. Ike and I are just going to have a fun conversation with you. Now, I've got these little notes here. A dad of 3 kids.
You got it.
Yeah, Shaun has started. He's always been entrepreneurial. In fact, as I was looking at your background, from being a mastercraft dealer to starting a company called American Healthcare Lending, and then you started another company called CMS Dose, and now you're at Connect. And every stage you've been successful. And here's the best part for all of our listeners, if I remember correctly. None of them was to do with any professional venture capital outside funding. Is that correct?
That's correct. The one thing you said that's not correct is that all of them have been successful. I think those are the successful ones that you're reading about. There's a bunch more that are not so successful, right? That's what an entrepreneur does, is fail a few times first.
Oh, yeah, amen to that, for sure. I think that's one of the things that we have to convey. Like the first-time entrepreneurs are so committed to the first one, and carry so much weight, right? I think they don't understand, if it fails, all the lessons you learned is in your bag, and it's good for the next one. We got to teach that.
Yeah, they also think that you got to go find a great whiz-bang idea that you dream up in the middle of the night. And I've actually never started a company with an idea that I came up with, ever. Not a single one out of the 8 or 9 that I've done has ever started with one of my ideas. And I think it's more about the execution and the operation than the actual idea.
I've often told people that I have a massive vacuum when it comes to original idea. All I do is focus on execution. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I could steal it from a friend and whatever, and I'll say, is that all right? Can I take it? Because there are lots of ideas out there, but the number of people who actually execute on them is, right? So I agree with that. I have no original idea, and I'm proud of it. It's okay. I'm good. Yeah. The older I get, I know I'm not. Good for you. Hey, tell us a little bit. So these businesses, particularly now, you said 8 or 9 businesses. What is it that you're working on now? What's the name of the company? What does it do?
Right now, yeah.
Let everyone know.
I'm the CEO of a company called Connect. We're a text messaging platform for dealerships. So customer engagement, communication for any type of dealership, from an auto dealership to RV to power sports, marine, you name it. We do everything from the first interaction on the website, lead kind of a thing, all the way through post-sale, post-transaction, and just make that experience better for the customer.
Wow. Has it always been in the tech world? We have a lot of tech in our community, and our audience is very much in that way. Have you always been in the software technology?
No, not as an entrepreneur. No. So I graduated from college and went right into software sales. That's kind of a hot thing here where I'm at in Utah. And so got into software sales and loved that, but didn't love the company or the direction we were going. So went back and got an MBA, and during MBA school back east, got the bug to not be in big business and wanted to be in small business and entrepreneurship. So ever since then, 2005, just kind of jumped into entrepreneurship and done retail, done healthcare, done fintech, and kind of SaaS in the dealership space now, particularly. So that's really my background. So a variety of different. I guess I'm a little bit all over the place with the industries and types of businesses. I just like building businesses. I just like take something from nothing and building it out of nowhere and making it grow. So
I couldn't agree more. I actually think, and I've told this to my grown children, go try anything and everything. You won't know what you're not good at unless you try a variety of industries, a variety of roles. Don't define yourself as, oh, this is all I do. I got to find the perfect sweet spot, and I can't start because I'm paralyzed because I haven't found the right one. There is no
mhm.
perfect one, right?
Yeah, and also like some people, like I believe in diversity. Like the people are great because of the diversity. There's no one way to get to the end. Like
Yeah,
some people say you gotta work in 10,000 hours and you're gonna know the craft and all that. But in some cases, not knowing anything about the industry, you coming in with a fresh perspective also helps. I've 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 read a lot of books that talked about the statistics. Sometimes you got to come in with the fresh eyes and innovate an industry that you've never been in before.
absolutely. I mean, that for me, that was like the boat business was something I was passionate about and loved boating as a child and water skiing. In fact, you can see my water ski there in the background still.
Yeah, I see it.
But I loved that industry, and so I wanted to get into that. But after 5 years of doing that, kind of killed my love for boating. So I don't know that you always go into something that you love to do that as your hobby. That maybe not should be your business. What I learned through that process, though, is I love building businesses and starting businesses and
Yeah.
finding product market fit and sales and marketing and business development. That's what I love, not the actual product necessarily. Like I love text messaging right now, but I'm not like a text messaging nerd. I don't sit at home and like
Uh-huh.
dream about text messaging. It's just what we do as a business. What's exciting is the people I work with and recruiting and doing what we do on a daily basis to improve the customer experience. That's what's exciting.
In my journey, one of the things I've always said is there's something about creating that gives me energy.
That
As soon as it goes into maintenance mode, ugh,
yes,
I start squirreling. All right.
Yeah, I was when I learned that um, for myself too. I like it was an epiphany for me. Like we, like, I used to admire the artists, creative people. Like like, um, and then I realized I am a creator of my own about the businesses, and that's
yep,
where my energy comes. That's what makes me happy.
yep, yeah. I feel the same.
We are creators, right? Like just like the artists, but our canvas is business.
Yeah. I think it's inside of everybody to some degree. I think we're just the crazy enough ones to actually jump off the cliff and do it and take the risk. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think everybody has a little bit of that in them for sure.
And part of the reason for this whole purpose of this podcast, how to support the underdog, because there's no bigger underdog than someone who takes the genesis of an idea and makes it into a business. For everything is against you. Everything's against you. From existing competition to changes in the economy to not having enough money to having to scrounge up resources. It's just a David Goliath story to the extreme, and hence this is why we're here, because we've been
Yep.
we've we've damaged our heads enough times by hitting all of these problems and left bloody marks. So why not share it with people, right? Why not tell them that, yeah, for all of the glamour and all of these unicorns and all this story that's out there, we want to be real. Some of the things that we've experienced, and that's one of the next question, right? What's your big embarrassment? What's your big pain? What was the thing that you can give us a story on? Because I can give you lots, but it's best if you share one from you. Your
Well,
turn, and then we'll take
let me
turns.
tell you one thing about underdogs too. Like I think that's one of the great, I think, traits of an entrepreneur. You have to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder and you have to have this crazy blind faith that you think you can beat the Goliath. And that's what, I mean, my favorite movies are Miracle on Ice, Karate Kid, Rudy, like those kind of stories get me excited. And that's what we do on a daily basis. And I think that's also why I don't like raising money from venture capitalists. Not only have I had some bad experiences, I'll tell you one back a few companies ago, needed money, one of the partners brought in some venture capitalists. They sat down, told us, we'll give you X amount, for 25% of the company, which I thought was ridiculous. But we were in a tight spot. And this was, 15, 20 years ago. And I was convinced to press forward. But at the last second, they came in with the paperwork and said, we'll do the deal, but we're taking 51% of the company.
Yes.
And in that moment, I said, I kind of lost it. And I said, absolutely not. And they said, if you don't take, I think it was $500,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but 20 years ago, that felt like a lot. $500,000. They said, you'll never be able to raise this, and you'll go out of business within the next 6 months. And I said, I'm going to prove you wrong. Within 30 days, we had $500,000 for about 10% of the company. And that company went on to be extremely successful and exit and all that. But that moment for me was like an underdog fuel to the fire. And for the next 5 years, I just wanted to prove those guys wrong. I didn't care about anything else, including my paycheck. I just wanted to prove them wrong. And we did. So I love the underdog story.
I have goosebumps everywhere. It's an amazing story. I, Bino, I don't know if you would. I have very similar ones myself as well. So hopefully the first time founders realize that it's okay. They just don't take it.
Yeah, and by the way, like you can take venture capital. I'm not here to like knock on venture capitalists. I've just never done it that way. I think you build a better company. You're more efficient. You're forced to make really hard product and personnel decisions early on, and you build a capital efficient business that people actually want to buy, and you're not just rolling the dice. But all right, let's go on to embarrassing moments, like you said. Sorry, I diverged there, but
That was important. That was important.
Well, you're saying embarrassing moments, or you're saying like epic failures that I've experienced? Because it's been a lot, I think a lot of both. But let me tell you about a failure. You mentioned one of the companies, CNS Dose. We were in the healthcare space and exited that company, and we're looking for the next opportunity. And I was introduced to a group out of Australia that had this game-changing genetic testing technology for antidepressant prescribing. So if you're familiar, everybody knows somebody that's on antidepressants, Prozac, Zoloft, that kind of stuff. It takes years to figure out the right dosage and the right medication to go on through trial and error. And it's a terrible process with a ton of side effects. These scientists figured out how to do it and use a genetic test with just a saliva cheek swab and tell you which medication to go on within a matter of weeks instead of years. So you would know the test results almost instantly, but then within a couple of weeks, you could get on the right medication and dose. And really cool technology. We brought it to the US for them and commercialized it here and sold it to hundreds of healthcare practices here, and was going great. And everything was rosy. We did everything right. And then this thing called Medicare decided to stop reimbursing our test. Or at least they cut the reimbursement by like 95%, which was basically cutting our revenue by 95%. And literally in one day, we had no revenue. So it was one of those moments where you did everything right. You felt you brought a cool product to market. It was helping a lot of people. It was a great mission. And yet an unforeseen economic force that we had no control over shut the business down essentially. And it didn't kill the business, but it was enough for us to do what entrepreneurs do and look elsewhere, pivot, whatever you want to call it, but start looking at other opportunities. And one came along, which ended up being amazing. But that was a tough failure because it was almost by no doing of ours. So there's one example. I got 10 more like that, but you learn a lot more from the failures than you learn from the successes.
Shaun, how long it took from start to coming to the day of D-Day, Medicare D-Day?
Oh, we were going for like almost a year there.
Yeah.
So kind of a year in. I mean, I have a similar one. The boat business, my experience there as a Mastercraft owner, dealer principal, was awesome. We were going for 3 years and setting records left and right and crushing it. And we got to almost 20 million in sales. And then 2008 hit.
Oh.
And if you think your business was hard, try selling luxury wakeboard and water ski boats in that kind of a market. So you have to pivot in that moment, and we did, and it turned into the next company that I started. But those moments are tough, and sometimes you can't prepare for them. And my learnings from that are deep. One of them is everybody's always happy with each other when you're selling lots of stuff. Super easy. Sales team, everybody loves each other, high fives. You learn about everyone and their true colors when you go through something like that, and it gets difficult. I've also learned to take chips off the table and enjoy the successes when you're having them. I think sometimes we hold too long, especially in technology. We think it's always going to be good because it was good last year, and that is so not true. And so you've got to take advantage of those moments.
I made that mistake.
That was wise. What he just said at the last bit, to enjoy the journey and to have some level of reward for having sacrificed instead of waiting forever and forever and the family starving in the back.
Yeah.
Mortgage payments are being missed. Very valid, very sage advice on that
We've
one.
never missed a mortgage payment or had a high credit card balance. What are you talking about? I
That's
don't know what
true.
you're talking about.
That's true. Look at that. Look, we don't even blink as we talk about that, and other people like, what? What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Right?
No, you just got to get comfortable with that kind of risk and just, but you also have to know when to cut bait. You have to know when to pivot. You have to know when you've got
Mhm.
product market fit and not, and confront the brutal facts of what's happening. So I do believe in that as well. You can't just be forever optimistic that it's going to all work out. You gotta change and alter the game many, many times during the game.
And
Isn't it like learning how to separate the emotions and the logical thoughts? Like they intermingle so much in the early days, so that you can't separate you can't come to the logic.
It's difficult. I think that's easier when you're not super passionate about, like, if it's not your life's work type of a company. Like for me, again, like text messaging, I'm kind of like emotionally distant from that. It's fine, like it's awesome, and it helps businesses grow and generate revenue. We create a lot of millionaires from these business owners, and it's fun to see them grow and succeed. But I'm building a business, and I
Yeah.
want it to be capital efficient. I want it to be a great place to work. I want it to be just an unbelievable place that I want to work first, and then those things kind of come secondarily.
Sean made a very important point that I've noticed for those who are very successful. There's a level of grit and passion and evangelical energy that goes into starting a business. But there needs to be a certain level of professional distance and balance between the
Yeah.
very product, the widget, whatever it is, and the ability to look at the whole business in a balanced perspective. For there comes time, and I've done it. Two companies, I had to shoot the horse in the head. In order to get to that stage, you got to have enough distance to be able to say, all right, for all that I've done, there comes a point in time that it's a no-go. It's a no-go. But if I don't, then I'll admit that I failed. And you're laughing. And then I've got to prove it. If I don't put my nose to the grind and really just go, right? And Ike knows this. A very good friend of mine, an angel investor, taught me something a long time ago that I've never forgotten. I was talking to him and I said, "Hey, Marco, how come when it's somebody else's business and somebody says, 'Hey, Benoy, could you have a look at my business? Tell me what you think,' and with no friction, I can go, okay, I can see this is wrong. This is this. You may want to consider doing this." And then it's all my own business and it's like molasses speed. Like, why? How come I can't look at my own business with the same level of clarity? And Marco goes, it's called hope. Soon as hope comes in there and the
Mhm.
emotion is kind of wound around the spine and the stomach lining,
Yeah.
you're toast, right? And it
Tough
was
though. Like it's a double sided coin. You have to be passionate and emotional enough to
Yeah.
stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning for 5 years in a row to get the thing off the ground. So then you have to turn that off all of a sudden if it's not working. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do, but you have to learn to compartmentalize those emotions,
Yeah.
or they can take over and cloud your analytical judgment, and that's really critical in some moments of the startup's life.
Indeed. And
Agreed.
I'll say this, I have a friend who's a very successful investor, built a relatively massive empire investing in businesses. And I asked him once, I took him out to lunch, I said, how do you do this? What's your secret formula? And he said, For example, I'll look at lots of companies and I'll dole out a little money to the ones that I think would be a good bet. And eventually, he says, I monitor their progress, and then the ones that are succeeding, then I'll feed them the next, but not the other four, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's able to distance himself and be able to look at it for what it's worth, not at the amount of pleading, not at the amount of emotional, oh, please, please, please. No, it's going to do this. He just looks at the business and the metrics and says, okay, you're worth the second round, the third round of dosage. That's how we've got to think too as we build these businesses. Ike, you had a comment?
No, all good, all good.
Okay. Hey, so I'll tell you one fast failure. There was a point in my, too many of them, there was a point in one particular area where I made a decision to sell a business, got it all, got the agreement written and everything else. And there was a 3 month delay before the balloon payment came. The agreement was done and I took off. That was the agreement. They took over the business. 3 months and one day comes, no balloon payment, right? 3 months and day two comes, no balloon payment.
Oh boy.
You know where this is going. So I was actually base camp Mount Everest with one of my kids, enjoying my out, right? And I come back and they'd run it into excess losses and said, sorry, we don't have the money. Here's the keys to the business.
Oh.
And of the many things I learned from that is sometimes the emotion can also cloud judgment on doing due diligence on the buyer of your business and having things put into place where it has teeth and it has I did everything, but the fact I could tell that the buyer actually didn't have the money at some point, but I chose to kind of oh, I sold it, I'm out, let's go, right? Oh, that was a painful lesson, a painful,
That's tough.
7-figure lesson. And then it goes, Ike, you were gonna say something.
No, my story on that was I was in Japan. They they were gonna pay us, I think millions for like 15% of the company. It is 2015 or so. We agreed on everything after months of negotiations, and Japanese people move really slow compared to US people in the negotiations. We get there, we have this United Nations style flags and photographer, like the ceremony stuff, that's what we're getting to. It's at 9 a.m. the ceremony. 7:30, I get a phone call saying, we changed our mind. We think you're worth the like half, so we're gonna give you the same amount of money, but we're gonna just double our percentage in the company. Uh, and we needed the money so desperately, you have no idea. And we've been preparing for 3 months how we're going to spend the money once we get it too, right? But we were like cool as the cucumber. Said, thank you for your offer. We'll change our flights. We're leaving in half an hour. We'll see you guys. Let's stay as friends. And I hung up the phone. And 30 minutes later, they reached to my attorney in US, and my attorney called me because I wasn't taking their calls anymore. I was so mad. And but my attorney said that the original deal back is in track. Go sign. Go to the photo session. You're gonna sign it there. So it you sometimes, like, you have these rose-colored glasses, about the business. You don't do your due diligence, like you said. You don't check everything. But even if you do, like Shaun, like your example, you do everything right. Sometimes there are greedy actors on the other side. You have to be prepared. Until the money is in the bank, the deal is not done.
Valid point. Two lessons that you would like to impart to our viewers, listeners. What two things would you say to first-time founders who are on the course and following years behind you, what two pieces of advice?
Dude, did I have three at least? I
Okay,
got,
all right, go for it. Whatever you want, go for it.
let me
You're
go.
still committing, Benoy.
The first one I would say is you hear all the time that it's all about the product or the market or the timing or access to capital. And all of those are absolutely critical. But I would actually sum up my most important things you got to focus on early on are recruiting and sales.
Hmm.
Everyone's going to have a good product. Sure, your product can be better, but if you can't sell a product, you're never going to get out of your own way. And recruiting is the most underrated secret weapon of any startup ever. You have to be amazing at selling your vision and selling where you're going to these people early on because you have no money to pay them. You have no clout, you have no customers. You have you have nothing and you got to recruit world-class people to join your cause and go into the front lines of battle with you and spill their blood every day with you. That is tough, but if you can do well at that, you can do anything because the people make the business great. And I think I've got tons of examples of that, but I just remember early on at one of the companies, American Healthcare Lending, going out and we couldn't recruit top salespeople. We didn't have the money. We weren't venture backed. We were bootstrapped, a little bit of friends and family, angel investing. And I went out and found a guy who was selling gym memberships at the 24-hour fitness. And this guy came in and we were selling software and he'd never sold software. And I described our software to him, told him to pitch me on it. And I was blown away by this guy. Absolutely incredible. Best pitch I'd heard in 100 interviews and hired him on the spot. And that guy carried our company. But it was because of recruiting and creative recruiting that really got us there. And on the sales side, I would just add a founder has to sell the product at least for the first couple of years. I was selling day to day at this company. We've been going for almost 7 now, 6.5. I was selling for the first 4 years. And why do I say that? Not only is it important to bring in revenue and you should be the best salesperson at your business, but you need to be on the front lines to learn what the customers need, what the market's doing, what are the competitors doing. And there's no one better equipped than you, the founder, to go figure out all of those things. So get on the phone, go sell the first 300 deals and be a salesperson and recruit like crazy. That's tip number one. I think that's something that I've learned. Number two, vest your founder shares.
Hmm.
So this is something I learned the hard way. But what everybody does is they come up with an idea, then 2 or 3 founders get in a room and they say, okay, let's split the pie up 33, 33, 33. All right, everybody, everyone happy? Okay, great. And we go to work. And then what happens? Well, one of those 3 is way more invested than the others and has a lot more tolerance for pain and might even have more cash in their bank account. And so about 1 year in, one of those 3 founders starts to get wobbly and says, I want out. Or my spouse says that I need to get a better job and make some money. And if you don't vest the founder shares, then one of those 3 leaves or 2 of those 3, and they take a third of the company with them. And then you can't raise money with that. And you've been held hostage by that equity. Don't do that. Just vest the founder shares, including your own. You get in a room, you say 33, 33, 33, and we'll all vest over 4 years. So if you're here for 4 years, then you get your full stock because by the time 4 years rolled around, you guys are either crushing it or you're out of business. I think that is something that aligns everybody's incentives, including investors, and is a thing that I wish I did from day one at all the companies. We do that with all the companies now and all the ones that I invest in as well. I think that's a critical piece. Number 3, if I get one more, then I'll
Do
stop.
it. Do it. Love it.
One more is this: keep the main thing the main thing. You've heard that. I think that's Stephen Covey. But I think in business, in startup land, one of the biggest mistakes I see is I'm trying to be everything to everybody or go to 5 different verticals at once or do too many things at once and follow too many opportunities. Just pick one of them and run that thing to the ground. If it doesn't work, then go to the next one. But don't do 7 at a time. That's how you burn all your cash. That's how you get really distracted. Go deep into one vertical, one space, one segment, whatever it is, and knock that out, and then go to the next one. It'll always be there. Don't think that you're losing out. Don't have FOMO of the next segment or the next vertical, because you're not even going to make it to that if you don't focus on one. So keep the main thing, and go deep. That's my third one. I'll stop.
Awesome. I love it. I love
Fantastic. I've I have experienced all of them, and I have people come now and say, "Hey, what do you think? I have a business idea." I said, "That sounds great." And the first words out of my mouth is, "Do you know how to sell it?" If you
Yeah.
haven't figured that out, don't start it. I don't care
Yeah.
how good the widget is or whatever. If you don't know how to sell it, right? Ike, isn't that why you
Uh,
started this
like,
new business?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Me and my co-founder is working on something, and he's a sales guru. I hired him twice in the past, so I know him very well. And I'm a techie, but I love engaging customers as well. So he came to me and said, Ike, let's do separation of duties. You handle the product, I will sell the software. Like I got the selling part. I said, I really appreciate that. I'm grateful. I know you're gonna do great, but I have to sell at least for the first year as well next to you. Find my own customers, talk to my own customers, because I need to be connected if I'm gonna build a product. I cannot do it in a separated way. So that's what we agreed.
And I love this. I will also tell you, Sean, on the second one about vesting schedules and such. I've actually found it in some ways the other way around. When things go really well, that's when you also see the ugly side of your partners.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Not just when it's bad, because then all of a sudden, I had no idea you had this green greed monster lurking in your bags that I never checked.
Yeah.
And sort of abnormal behavior and entitlement and whatever. So for us, at least from my experience, a vesting schedule has been one of the proven ways to the litmus test to see whether or not they will contribute and pull like they promise, and that they're actually going to behave during the rise, not just during the scrappy times. Right.
Good point. Let
So
me share one other thing. I'm going for number four because this just came to mind, but I think this is important. A lot of times, the a founder thinks I've got to go hire somebody that's absolutely like the VP of Adobe or whatever it is to run my X team. And I think sometimes we way over index for that, especially in technology. If you're not in technology, I still think this applies. But in a startup that's growing and hyper growing and you're doing a triple, double, you're going really fast. If you're doing that, you're going to have to replace your senior people, like your key leaders, about every 2 years. Call it every 5 to 10 million in ARR in tech. You're going to have to keep doing that. And so you need to find the person for the right stage that you're at. Don't look at the logos. Don't look at Microsoft and Adobe when you've only got $1 million in revenue, because those people aren't actually suited for what you need. You need someone who's scrappy, who's an entrepreneur like you, who will go in the trenches with you. But then when you get to scale, you hire those people as well. So you'll see the whole gamut. But I think a lot of times we think early on, I got to hire that person, but that person might be an enterprise person that you're hiring for a very SMB type of a role. Be careful with that and just stick with the people that are going to help you in the current stage that you're at, and just get prepared to continue to hire. The people that get you here won't get you there type of an approach. You've got to continue to reinvent yourself.
So Ike knows all about this one. So, Sean, give
Thank
us your
you.
insights into the next question related to this. How do you then, while you dug in the trenches, fighting alongside, then tell your VP of sales or director at that time, dude, you met your cap. I need to put someone over you, or whatever, and at the same time keep friendship, keep some level of dignity so that you don't look like I used you and now I'm going to abuse you. It's time to get somebody else in place. How do you make that transition to the prior person who met the ceiling? And Ike, I want to get your input on that too, because we went
Okay.
through that.
Yeah.
I This is something that I deal with a couple of times every single year, maybe 3 or 4 times. And I would just say an overarching statement is be kind. If you're truly kind and you truly care about that person, you can find an equitable solution and a graceful exit from your business, no matter what stage you're at, no matter where they are. And I think helping them understand that what got us here will not get us there, and showing them that vision, and then showing them what's needed to get there, and showing a little bit more transparency, I think helps the conversation. But when helping them exit, it's all about being kind. And I think
Give
if
me
you
an
really
yeah,
care about them, I mean, you can, let me give you some examples of that. If
yeah,
that's what you're saying, like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
for example, from a stock perspective, you can kick them to the curb and then say, good luck, you can execute on whatever options you have vested, or you can extend their vesting expiration date. You can give them a little bit more stock. You can be kind in ways with compensation, with severance. I think the kindest thing you can do is help them find their next gig. I'm notorious for doing that around here because I think that matters. And you carry a lot of weight as a founder, CEO, COO, president, CFO. You carry a lot of weight in helping them find their next role. So go help them find their next role and be their number one reference and help them get that job. That's the number one thing you can do. But I think it really boils down to, do you really want to help them? Are you really kind? And by the way, they need to understand that you're running a business too. And if you take all the emotion and people out of it, if you continue to hold on to those people, you will not make it to the next stage. You will stagnate your growth and you won't make it there. So it has to be done. Are you going to do it is the question. And just be bold, but be kind.
Oh my, there's so much stuff there. Sean, Bino and I always talk about founders being kind, not nice. So there's a whole episode on that, Bino, that we're gonna have to come to. On the hiring, like these directors and VPs and C levels from the other companies, I think 50% come from the board members, like the VCs. VCs push for that hard as
Mm.
soon as they come in. But the other part also from the founders, they think they've seen scale, they can create scale. But getting to scale is different than running a scale. So, and then the titles are abundant. Like, hey, I'm hiring a CRO, even though that's probably director of sales
Yes,
at that level, and then you need to bring a CRO. It's just it's not a match. But
totally
um,
agree.
the the thing I'm gonna say one last thing about when you're parting ways with somebody. Again, when you're a founder, you learn the human psychology a lot, I think. And sometimes those people that you're letting go that is not up to challenge, they are hanging on because they just want FOMO. They just want the next level in their career. But if you dig in, they're actually doers, not managing people type people. And doers, they're great people. It's just like they need to find their next company that they can continue doing what they enjoy rather than managing worldwide, sales operations, let's say, and then travel all the time rather than doing so. If you dig in, I think you need to be kind for sure. But if you understand their personality and what they like to do, it's probably good for them to
No, they'll
find.
be happier, and they are happier because they'll be more comfortable in the role because they can dominate at that role instead of being underqualified for where you're going.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's hard though in any case. Think about it. Why does the founder get to stay? Why do we have to turn over those
you
people,
have to
but you
learn.
get to stay? It's because you're not specializing in that specific role. You're a generalist. You're just hiring all of your weaknesses and all of the people around you. But you need those people to be specialists, and you actually need people who have done that exact thing at that exact stage,
Yes.
not somebody who can grow into that over time. It won't work at scale. Early on, I think 0 to 20 maybe that does work a little bit. Like someone can stretch, but after that, you've really got to go hire the people who have done it before, or you die. Everyone dies, and you put the whole thing at risk.
Yep.
My one commentary on this topic is that when you are starting and a first time founder, you do everything you can to charm, cajole, and get people to work for you and with you for little to no compensation, right? And so that's where the heart goes in and you feel loyal to them. And then there comes a point in the maturation of the business where you have to be so transparent about the business and what's happening that you can provide a little bit of distance to be able to say, all right, Joe, Shaun, Ike, thank you for helping me get to this point. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to reward you handsomely and thank you. But it is time to move on. And for that
Mm-hmm.
ability to be prepped early on in the founder's mind, that they have to anticipate that and to
Yes.
make that change, that's the hard part. And the part that for me, I'm always coaching these to the CEOs. Start now thinking of how you can best custom tailor to these individuals that you have cajoled on. They've got some success, but now you have to help them for the next company, find them in a different place. But it's a mental shift here for the founder. With that said, we don't have much time, but we have some questions that keep coming in from some of our viewers from the past and those who send it to us.
So it's I'll explain the question rather than reading it. For our first time founders, be where you're at, Shaun, they need to exit. They need to get a few under the belt. So the question is, what contributed to your successful exits? And then between the first one and the second one and the third one, what changed? What factors evolved, or your thought process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'll say something else, but I first want to go back to recruiting and sales. Like, I'm not going to go away from that. Like, number one is hire the right people, find the right people, and you're going to be successful. And get on the phones or get out in the field and go sell yourself, because there's nothing that can really, change the game more than that. But maybe the thing that I would pick on is I would say, don't be afraid to change. I think a lot of founders hold on to what they did and just hope that next month it'll get better. I would tell you that around here at this startup that I'm at right now with my 250 closest friends, I think I think we probably make major changes on a monthly basis and minor changes to the business on a daily basis. And when I'm saying changes, I'm talking about comp plan, vertical selection, go to market strategy, marketing. I mean, I think a lot of times we pick something, we invest in it, we lock into that, and we let it ride for months or years. And I think you've got to be way more nimble than that and be willing to change quickly. And then your second question, like, how has that evolved over multiple exits and multiple ventures? The thing, and maybe this will inspire you if you're on number two or three or about to go on to number two or three. But the thing that I didn't know when I was on number one is that I could pick up all the learnings that I had in number one and deposit them in number two on day one. And that made it go really fast. And then on number three, pick up all number one and two learnings and deposit them on day three and bring people along with me along the way. So when you get to number 4, 5, 6, 7 or whatever, you are at hyper velocity already before you even start, because you've got all the learnings and the knowledge and some of the people behind you. And that's half the battle. So one quick example of that is here at Connect, we built a very sophisticated outbound inside sales engine at the last company and had 70 salespeople and all sorts of people doing this over the phone webinar type sales. And we learned all sorts of things and built, great funnel and metrics and marketing to go into that. Well, guess what? We picked that whole thing up and all of our learnings and processes and Salesforce instance and custom everything. And we had that on the first day we started this company. So guess what? Sales were awesome on day one
Yeah.
because we had all those learnings. So I think have courage in number 2, 3, and 4, because a lot of it is just learning, right? You know how to do it. I would also maybe put a little asterisk that I recommend going into the same general business or industry that you did before if you want that to really work. Like, I couldn't pick up a ton from the boat business and stick it into the software business, but I did pick up quite a few things that have been very helpful. But just be careful, like, it doesn't always translate. So if you want the most bang for your buck on your learnings, just go pick it up and do it again. Like 2 companies ago, we did SaaS, and then this one's SaaS, and that's been a home run because of the velocity that we had there already.
Wow, Ike, what did you think of that?
Awesome advice. Thank you.
And so, what would you add, Ike, in some of your lessons that you've learned? Uh,
Phew.
as you look back and say, hey, this is why I was successful. Even that is a good pointer.
I think so. I'm looking back. I totally resonate with the sales portion of it. Founder needs to be sales, and I think I was one of the best salespeople forever. Um, and and one thing different here, like in the previous company, I bootstrapped it for 7 years, and there were a lot of near-death situations there, but we always prevailed, right?
Yeah.
But I had my I don't know if my brain was washed by Silicon Valley, or I had these aspirations. I had to go get money from VCs, and that changed everything. All of a sudden, I had a boss. We didn't have a boss. We didn't have a board. We just making decisions like every day, every week, and then there would be problems every other week that is a catastrophic level, and we had to fix, right? Like, and it was good, but I never regretted getting VC money, because now I know the the lessons with or without VC. I
Yeah.
can decide if I want VC money or not in the next business, if it's appropriate. It's I think the Silicon Valley always tries to say you have to raise money on day one, and so they have money, they can make money along with the founder. That's Yes, there are great companies, and some companies are great fit for it. You need a lot of capital to build some big companies, but many others don't. So it depends on. So I learned that lesson. I think like VC as or bringing outside money is useful only in certain cases, not all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
It changes everything.
it does. And I've got one quick point, and we're going to have to wrap this up. Uh, um, I have the luxury today of coaching many tech software CEOs in my role. And one of the things that I consistently see as a trend and as a thread through all of them, that allows them to succeed, is the ability to actually empower the softer side of all of their people. After all the widgets and bits and product market fit and whatever, it comes down to leadership skills about people. And I tease people all the time, business would be easy if it weren't for the people in it, right? It's almost always those soft skills that have to be acquired and developed. And the ones that continue to succeed, and as I watch them, are the ones who quickly go, oh, I didn't treat that person very well. Oh, I didn't communicate that with clarity. Oh, I was unclear, and I wasn't able to make that person be heard and felt, so that I could get them to a level of trust. Then building upon that trust, and giving them the leeway to use their talents and their expertise, it becomes unleashed versus me micromanaging each of those aspects. The leaders who know how to work with people are the ones who consistently grow in each of the successive rounds. Yes, you can learn skills, you can learn tools, you can have databases, you can repurpose things from the past, but you're always constantly learning how to work with people's hearts and minds to keep them energized and have given them a purpose and a why. Those are the ones that I see winning. So,
I totally agree. I think some of that comes down to gratitude. I'm just grateful to work with such great people, and I think we're all lucky and blessed to just be entrepreneurs and to be able to start a company, to be in a country that allows us to do that, and to have awesome people around us and be grateful for them because they're working hard and they have tough situations at home and wherever they're from. And so I think just being grateful for being in the position that you are, that you can do what you're doing and you can be an entrepreneur, it's a huge blessing. And we've all been lucky enough to enjoy it. So if you're a first time, second time founder out there, just keep going, but be grateful, be kind, and love the people that you're surrounded by because they're what makes your business great. And if you surround yourself with great people, the sky's the limit. You're going to do great things out there.
What a beautiful summary, Shaun. We couldn't thank you enough for your graciousness and the way that you've been able to share the ups and downs and the fact that you're still doing another one, right? You're actively building another business.
You have to.
Yay!
It's part of. It's in your blood. You got to
Oh,
keep going.
agreed. Agreed.
Right? Right?
Yeah,
We
Got
and
to
I talk
create,
about
like you
the
said. We like creating. Doesn't stop.
exactly. Exactly.
absolutely. And having formed all of these successful relationships, successful businesses with the fact that you said gratitude tells me that's part of your secret sauce. That you have been that humble during this whole journey. It's a rare thing. So I applaud you. Thank you for being an example to many who hopefully will be able to hear and be inspired by this story. Thank you. Shaun
Thank you.
Sorensen, Connect. We
Thank you.
applaud you and thank you for being on our
Thanks
show.
for having
Ike,
me.
anything else?
Thank you, Shaun. It was a pleasure. Hopefully, in a few months, we can invite you back again because there's so much more that we can share with the first-time founders.
Yes.
Maybe next time with some Thai food. That'd be great.
There you go. Yes.
Put the
agreed.
cameras on as we're slurping. Right? As we're
Sounds
slurping
good.
loudly. So, with that, thanks so much.